In this video, I'm going to show you how you can turn the process of removing flyaway hairs into a repeatable, simple action. I'm Paul, and this is Mastering Portrait Photography. In a previous video on masteringportraitphotography.com, I showed how easily and how quickly you can remove flyaway hairs if you approach it in a certain way. I'd like to say thank you to everyone who watched that and to the people who sent me comments liking the video, but also asking, could you do that as an action? Now, actions are brilliant. They're one of the best things about Photoshop. You can record sequences, you can create sequences, and then you can play it back on every image you choose. So I sat and thought about it, and while you can't do every single bit of that process, or create an action from every single bit of that process, you can get pretty close. And in this video, I'll show you the steps. We'll create the action together, but I will also make the action available in our show notes on masteringportraitphotography.com. So if you don't want to actually record the action for yourself, you can download it over there. Here's our image. So this is a picture of Meg. Beautiful picture, but there's a few flyaway hairs. In fact, to be fair, this image isn't that bad, but it's a useful vehicle to be able to develop the action. Now, this type of image will work very well. It's got a very blurred background, so shallow depths of field with very little detail. This kind of technique works really reliably. If you have a more detailed image with a big depth of field, let's say you're photographing in an office, this might not work quite so well, so just a heads up. However, the first thing we're going to do is get the lasso or lasso or lasso or lasso. I have no idea how to say it. The lasso tool, which is L in Photoshop. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work my way around the image, selecting all of the hairs, leaving a little bit of a gap. Okay, I've got most of them, but what I'm then going to do is just zoom in, make sure that any that I've missed, I'm going to hold down the shift key. So any that are strayed out, I can just see them on my screen now. I've zoomed in. I only want to select the hairs. I really don't want to select too much of the background. So if here where there's no hairs, what I'm going to do is hold down the Alt key on the Mac and just subtract from that selection. I'm going to get a little bit closer in. Here, again, just going to get a little bit closer in here and here and here. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and expand the selection where I've missed a few. Clearly one or two here. With practice, you'll work out for yourself and your own images how much space you need to leave. Now, I've obviously run this process a couple of times today, and I know more or less how much space I need to leave around the hairs for it to work reliably. Okay, so I think we've caught everything. I'm just zooming around, just holding the space bar. Oh, there's too much here. I can just, again, just subtract that. Okay, let's have a look. So that's about right. That is now the selection around the hair that we're going to use. So what I'm now going to do is start recording the action. So when eventually we use the action, the first thing you'll do is you'll create this selection and then you'll hit play on the action you've created and it will step through everything. So I need this selection to be done first to be able to create the action that we're recording. So I've already created a group in my actions folder, which is where I'm going to put it. And I'm going to go down to the bottom here and I'm going to create a new action. I'm going to call it PW. I always put my initials in front of any actions I create, not for any glorious reason, except that I have a lot of actions that I've either bought or the people have given me, and so I always put my initials in front so I know it's one of mine because I forget. I'm going to call it Paul, or PW rather, Flyaway. I can't even spell Flyaway. Hairs removal. And I'm going to hit record. So from now on in, everything I do in Photoshop is going to be recorded. So we've done, lassoed round our hair, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that selection so I don't have to do it again. So you go up to the top, you go to Select, Save Selection. I'm going to call it, let's call it Hair Selection, so I know what it is when I look at it later. It's going to be a new channel, so that's the only option you get here at the moment because I haven't got anything else. It's a brand new image. I'm going to hit OK. So that has saved my marching ants. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect everything. So I'm going to work on the whole image for a moment. So I'm going to go down to Select, Deselect, or just hit Command or Control and D. And then I'm going to create a copy of the background layer. So many ways to do this. I go down here and I'm going to hit Duplicate Layer. Let's call it Removed Hairs. Okay, so I've now got two layers. I've got my original background, and I've got a layer that eventually will have all of the hairs removed. What I'll do now is I'm going to select, let's zoom out a little bit, I'm going to select the whole image, Command or Control and A, and I'm going to save that selection. So I've now got down here, so I'll go down to Save Selection, and I'm going to call this Entire Image. We're going to use this later on, and it's really important that you do it, or it's easier if you do it. There are other ways of doing things, of course. As with Photoshop, there's always 1,000 ways of doing anything. So I've saved that, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the size of the canvas. So we go to Image, Canvas Size, and we're going to expand it by percentage, not by pixels, because I've no idea in the future whether we're going to be working on small images or big images. These are also D5, so what's that? 30 odd megapixels, I think. So percent on both of them, and I'm going to go for 20%, 20%. Horizontal and vertical, and I'm going to make it relative. Oops, I should have done that first. 20, 20. So I want 20% on each of those, and I want it to be relative, which just means it's going to expand it by 20%. Hit OK. Now you can see I have my image. So now if I load that original image selection, so I'll go to Select, Load Selection, I go to Entire Image. Again, I'm going to have it as a new selection, and I'm going to invert it. Okay, so that means it's just going to select it, but invert it automatically. And now I've got marching ants all the way around the outside. Then I'm going to go to Edit, and I'm going to go to Content. Sorry, I'm going to go to Fill. Now, I could go straight to Content Aware Fill, but because we're thinking about this to automate it, to record it, Content Aware Fill throws a dialogue and it gets a little bit more complicated. So we're just going to go Fill. Select, make sure Content Aware is selected with color adaptation, and hit OK. Now the reason we're doing this is that in a moment we're going to use Content Aware Fill to remove sections of the hair, and all I've really done is make my image slightly bigger, which makes some of the steps I'm doing later on a little bit more reliable, particularly if your image is cropped in a little tighter than this one. This image would be fine no matter what I do, because there's a lot of blurred background to work with. But if you have a tight cropped image, you definitely need to do this step to give the algorithms a little bit more space to work, and then we're going to remove it again at the end. Okay, so I've done that, and now I'm going to just deselect that. So again, Select, Deselect, or Command and Control D. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select the subject. This will take a moment because it's uploading all that data. Oh, there we go. It's done it pretty quick, actually. And again, I'm going to save that selection simply so that I don't have to do it again. So this time we'll call Subject Selection. Oops, terrible spelling. And hit OK. So I've now got three selections. I've got a wide selection of the hair. I've got a selection of the image as it was when I loaded it. And I have the subject selected, and I can load each of those at any one time. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load, so I'll go to Load Selection, and I'm going to load the hair selection, but I'm going to add it to the subject. So now I've got the original subject, but where I selected the hair, it's grown it out a little bit. And then again, I'm going to go to Edit, Fill, Content Aware. Now, because I've expanded my crop, Content Aware Fill has a lot of imagery rather to work with, which makes it that little bit more reliable. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect the subject. So again, I go to Select, Deselect, or Command D, Control D. So I have a blank image and I have no subject, no selection at all. But I'm going to load back in my original subject. So I'm going to go to Load Selection, and I'm going to go Subject Selection. So now I have the marching ants for the subject that I selected earlier. And I'm going to inverse that selection so that I've selected the background rather than subject, but I'm still on my removed hairs layer. And now I'm just going to select Add a New Mask. Because I've already got a selection, it's going to create a mask. And as you can see, that has shown through the subject and left the background. Now, if I zoom in on this, you can see that some of the flyaway hairs are already removed. But we're just going to fine tune that a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the mask. So make sure the mask is selected. You've clicked on it. And then I'm going to go to Filter, Noise, Dust and Scratches. And then you can watch what's happening on the screen. You can see, depending on where I move the slider, this is just removing those little flyaway hairs. And I can choose, you have to play around with this for your own images, your own image style, the particular set. But once you get it set, we're just going to record that. So somewhere around there, let's just, somewhere around there, that's fine. Okay. So now we've done it. We've removed the flyaway hairs, but this still isn't the image that I started with because I need this to go back to the same crop I had at the beginning. So what I do is go back to Select. I'm going to load the selection and I go to the entire image and hit OK. So it's given me those marching ants, but this is no longer, last time we did this, we inverted it. This time I haven't. And I'm going to go to Image, Crop. I'll just zoom back out and deselect. And there I have my final image. So I'm just going to stop recording there. And obviously that's pretty much worked. How do we know that? Well, let's have a look. So if I go all the way up to the history where the last of the lassos I did is created, and then I go to my action I've just created, and I hit play, it should step through the whole process that we've just done piece by piece. There you go. Now what happens though in an action if you want to be able to fine tune it every time you run the action? Well, the one step I would think where you will want to fine tune it is the step where we use the dust and scratches filter. So down here and dust and scratches, here's the step. Right next to it you can see there's a tick box. Now the tick box says that step is going to be played. So if you're testing things you can actually untick boxes, try things out. But if you see this box here next to it, if I click on that, you get what looks like an itty-bitty little dialog box. So now what it'll do is when I get to the stage, get to that step where we're going to use the dust and scratches, it'll throw a dialog and let me fine tune it. So let's again go to our history. I'm going to go to the last of the lassos. Okay, lasso. One of these days I'll figure out how to say it. Back to my action. Flyaway hairs removal, and I'm going to hit play again. Again, it will step through all of the steps, but when it gets to that final adjustment step where you're just checking and adjusting the dust and scratches, it will throw a dialog telling me or asking me how I want it to do it. Okay, so there you go. So if you want an action where every time you run it, it just gives you a little bit of fine tuning that you can do. So I can really condense in, hit OK. There you go. So that's allowed me to fine tune it. And if I show you before and after, that's worked pretty well. But that's fine. We built this action on this image. What if we put another image in? Because that's always what you have to do when you're building actions. So let's have a quick look at this one. Again, I'm going to get a lasso. Just going to work my way around it. Now on an image like this one, you can see why I did the expanding the crop step when I changed the canvas size. That was because this image, if you don't, when it comes to the content aware fill stage, it will get the filled bit really quite bad. It won't do it very well at all. And it's really important that you get that. Actually, I'm going to just loop around that as well. Work my way around. Making sure that everything's in. I'm just holding the Shift key to expand, the Alt key to remove part of the selection from the marching ants. It's that one there. Okay, again, that's about right. So we go back to our action, flyaway hairs removal, hit play, and let's see what it does with a completely different image. Still Meg, still beautiful, but this is a different image. It'll ask me for the settings that I want to use. I can fine tune it, hit OK, and there you have it. It's cropped it back to its original crop, and it's taken out the flyaway hairs. So if I show you before and after. Now, things to be aware of course, with a technique like this is we're using content-aware fill to fill in the background, and it's not creating exactly the same background as we had in the original image. So if I hide those hairs, you can see that it's ever so slightly different. That doesn't matter for an image like this. It might matter if you're shooting where there's a lot of detail in the background. But here, where all I want to do is remove any distracting flyaway hairs quickly and easily and in a very automated way, then here it is. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it's useful. Like I said, I will share this action on our masteringportraitphotography.com site. I'll put it into the show notes on there. You have to click through to our shop to download it, but that's only because it means that when you go to your download section in Mastering Portrait Photography, you better get to it every single time you go there. It'll be repeatable. You can see where it is, all in one place. I hope that's really useful. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please also head over to masteringportraitphotography.com and register as a user on there. It's full of little videos like this, walkthroughs, ideas, techniques. It was based on the book Mastering Portrait Photography, and I really hope you enjoy it. It's also the home of the podcast Mastering Portrait Photography. And until next time, whatever else, be kind to yourself. Take care. Sick.